The year was 2002. America was just a few months out of 9/11. We were at war in Afghanistan, and at war against an abstract concept called terror.
4 confirmed cases of anthrax, all with media connections.
Another shoe bombing had been attempted on a U.S. passenger plane.
The threat of nuclear terrorism is real, whether it is a nuclear device or a dirty bomb.
With the whole country obsessed with terrorism, George Bush was one of the most popular presidents in history. But there was a problem. Even though huge resources had already been expended, none of the terrorist leaders, people like Osama bin Laden and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, had been found, and Americans were looking for blood. But in March of 2002, after months of waiting, that finally changed. The US got its guy. No, not Osama and not Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, but he was still really, really important. You see, for months, the CIA had been talking about this one guy. His name was Zain al-Abidin Mohammed Hussein, more commonly known as Abu Zubaydah. According to the CIA, this Abu Zubaydah was one of the most fearsome terrorists in the entire world. He was born in Palestine, but he had gone to Afghanistan in the 80s to fight the Soviets. And after the war, he stayed in Afghanistan, becoming the manager of a terrorist training camp, the chief of operations for all of al-Qaeda, and a top lieutenant to Osama bin Laden. So Abu Zubaydah was a really big fish. CNN reported that Abu Zubaydah might have actually been controlling al-Qaeda himself. Based on that information, the US approached the government of Pakistan, a country to Afghanistan's east, and offered $10 million if they helped find this mysterious bad guy. So the Americans did raid after raid in Pakistan looking for Abu Zubaydah. After several attempts, they finally found the guy in a safe house. During the raid, however, he was shot several times in the head, suffering severe injuries. So severe, the CIA flew a doctor from Johns Hopkins into Pakistan to keep the suspect alive. Once it was clear that he would live, the CIA took custody of him. In America, this was announced as huge news.
Among those we have captured is a man named Abu Zubaydah, al-Qaeda's chief of operations. From him, and from hundreds of others, we are learning more about how the terrorists plan and operate. Our coalition is strong.
But back in Pakistan, the people who were detaining him discovered something disturbing. Abu Zubaydah was not exactly the guy they thought he was. You see, while he was fighting in Afghanistan, Abu Zubaydah was hit in the head by some shrapnel. Some of that shrapnel lodged in his brain and gave him serious brain damage. He developed severe memory problems and couldn't speak for a year. So the man they had arrested was not a senior al-Qaeda operative. He wasn't a senior operative in anything. He was a greeter in a training camp in Afghanistan, but it was not an al-Qaeda camp. It was opposed to al-Qaeda. The CIA had even helped set it up in the 80s. When the government found Abu Zubaydah's diary, thousands of pages long, recording minute details of people he met or what he ate every day, they found nothing relating to the terrorist attacks in which he was allegedly involved. What they found instead was the story of a mentally ill individual whose head injury resulted in his writing the diary in any one of 3 different personalities. The FBI's senior expert on al-Qaeda said himself, "This guy is insane, certifiable, split personality." The diaries showed that Abu Zubaydah simply wasn't involved in al-Qaeda. He wrote more about his deep attachment to his mother than about any involvement in terrorist activities. Here's one diary entry.
Now, I don't cry when I remember my dad beating up my mom. I don't cry when I remember her crying like a child in my arms when I was a child. I don't cry when I remember all these things as much as I cry when I remember that I offended her.
This was not exactly the master terrorist the US thought they had captured, but the US government had already said very publicly that this guy was a top operative in al-Qaeda and a trusted confidant of Osama bin Laden.
Among those we have captured is a man named Abu Zubaydah, al-Qaeda's chief of operations.
So in April 2002, President Bush turned to his CIA director and told him, "I said he was important. You're not going to let me lose face on this, are you?" The CIA director responded that no, he wouldn't let the president lose face. So what was initially a mistake was declared to be true and became a fabrication. Abu Zubaydah became the first high-value detainee of the War on Terror. 2 weeks after his capture, he was transported to a black site in Thailand, where he could be subject to a new method of interrogation the CIA was testing out. Almost immediately after Abu Zubaydah was captured, the CIA began discussing how to interpret the US's prohibition on torture in order to allow for what they called enhanced interrogation. And at the black site, they put that plan into effect. Here's how a government report described the atmosphere of the prison.
A cable described Abu Zubaydah's cell as white, with no natural lighting or windows, but with 4 halogen lights pointed into the cell. Security officers wore all black uniforms, including boots, gloves, balaclavas, and goggles to keep Abu Zubaydah from identifying the officers, as well as to prevent Abu Zubaydah from seeing the security guards as individuals who he may attempt to establish a relationship or dialogue with. The security officers communicated by hand signals when they were with Abu Zubaydah and used handcuffs and leg shackles to maintain control. In addition, either loud rock music was played or noise generators were used to enhance Abu Zubaydah's sense of hopelessness. Abu Zubaydah was typically kept naked and sleep-deprived.
During his time in Thailand, Abu Zubaydah was kept in terrible conditions. At the beginning, he was given no solid food and kept naked and shackled to a chair. After a few weeks, he was given rice once a day and allowed to sleep naked on the floor. Abu Zubaydah was kept totally isolated for an entire month, while the CIA developed a plan for more aggressive torture. In late July, they began testing a procedure called waterboarding, in which a prisoner would be strapped to a table with water poured over their head in order to simulate the experience of drowning. In August 2002 alone, Abu Zubaydah was waterboarded 83 times. For 17 straight days, the CIA used a variety of techniques: waterboarding, slamming him against a concrete wall, confining him in a small box, depriving him of sleep, blasting white noise, and keeping him in a freezing room. As the torture continued, Abu Zubaydah became so broken and compliant that when an interrogator snapped his finger twice, Abu Zubaydah would lie down flat to be waterboarded. In at least one session, he became completely unresponsive, totally desensitized to the torture. All of this was filmed by the CIA, and 92 tapes were produced of what was done in Thailand. But while they were torturing Abu Zubaydah, the CIA began to find that he wasn't really able to provide them much information. The CIA still thought he was holding back, so they continued torturing him. In order to prevent further torture, Abu Zubaydah told them what they wanted to hear. He told them that al-Qaeda wanted to attack the Brooklyn Bridge and the Statue of Liberty, and that they knew how to build a nuclear weapon and smuggle it into America. He even told them that al-Qaeda had ties to Saddam Hussein's government in Iraq. All of these false statements were used by the Bush administration to justify expanding the war on terror. Abu Zubaydah's statements were a big part of the intelligence that America cited in invading Iraq the next year. But what Abu Zubaydah was telling his torturers was never actually useful. According to the Washington Post, not a single significant plot was foiled as a result of Abu Zubaydah's tortured confessions. Soon, the CIA began to have doubts about the information Abu Zubaydah was providing, and about their methods in getting that information. Some of them even requested that if Abu Zubaydah died during interrogation, his body be cremated so that the torture wouldn't be discovered. So, in 2005, a CIA agent named Gina Haspel, the person who oversaw the black site in Thailand, ordered the destruction of 90 videotapes of Abu Zubaydah's torture. In September 2006, Abu Zubaydah left CIA custody and was transferred to Guantanamo Bay, America's main detention camp for enemy combatants. By then, the CIA had already concluded that Abu Zubaydah was, in fact, not even a member of al-Qaeda. By the time that Abu Zubaydah arrived in Guantanamo, the torture had fully broken him, and that was more than a decade ago. To this day, Abu Zubaydah is still in captivity in Guantanamo, the country that tortured him having simply forgotten about him. It never mattered that they knew he was innocent. Just look at what happened to the people who tortured Abu Zubaydah. Gina Haspel, who oversaw Abu Zubaydah's torture, became director of the CIA in 2018.
Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to serve and to carry out the critical work of helping protect our country, our people, and our way of life. Thank you very much.
President Bush retired to his ranch in Texas.
Please welcome President George W. Bush.
And Abu Zubaydah, meanwhile, is still in Guantanamo Bay. He has never been charged with anything. More than 10 years after the government concluded he wasn't a terrorist, he's still held in strict detention. "My mother," he said in one letter to the outside world, "I have not seen her in so long." I'm Ismael Loutfi for the Gravel Institute.